everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cougar Cast. We're very excited for today's episode, which is actually episode number 5. Welcome, everyone. The sponsor for today's episode, would you mind saying who it is, Olivia?
Yeah, so our sponsor for today is Summit Leaders. So Summit Leaders uses leadership and coaching and outdoor adventure to inspire vision and purpose in the leaders of today and tomorrow. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can visit them at www.summitleaders.com. Again, that's www.summitleaders.com. So today we have a great guest joining us online today. And so would you like to read for us, Mr. Daniel?
He is the founder of Summit Leaders, where he uses outdoor adventure and leadership coaching to help people find their calling and pursue a vision for their lives. His expeditions have taken him around the world to places like Mount Kilimanjaro, the Grand Canyon, and Machu Picchu. He has traveled to over 70 countries and 6 continents and speaks 3 languages. He holds a BA in political science and MS in counseling. He speaks at churches, conferences, and corporate events around the country and is the author of Vision Map, Fully You, Guided by Thunder, Love Slows Down, and Connecting the Dots and Keep It Light. You can find his weekly podcast, The Mom Podcast, on YouTube, and he actually is a CAG alumni who graduated in 1996. He and his wife, Emily, and daughter, Elise, live in Texas, and please welcome Mr. Joël Malm.
So I'm actually fairly familiar with Joel. I know that he hiked Machu Picchu with my dad, so I'm really excited to be able to talk to him again. So we mentioned that you were a student at CAG and that you lived in Guatemala. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Best experience of my life. Hands down, and I'm not just saying that. It was such an incredible experience. The community at CAG, I think that was the primary thing, is the community there. And the people I got to grow up around, just some of the cream of the crop, best people that are serving in Guatemala. A lot of them are missionaries. And we also had a lot of people that were parents who were in ministry, Guatemalan families. And it was such a great crew to be around. So it was great. It set me up. I literally feel like that experience set me up for the rest of my life.
Wow. We're so glad that you had that amazing experience. So we were actually able to find your old yearbook, and we wanted to quiz you on a few things to see how familiar you are with the things that you put and if you achieved any of those goals or accomplishments.
Oh my gosh, all of my goals have changed. Okay, let's hear them. What were my goals back then?
Okay. So our first question is, what were your nicknames at CHE and how did you get them?
I don't remember. What were they? I don't remember.
Okay, so we actually have 4. They're Drummer Boy, Sunshine, Joel, and Joelius. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
The one I lived up to is Joel.
Oh my gosh.
That's right. Yeah, I was super into drums back then. And I actually proudly remember that I was one of the first people, I think, that ever got to play a drum set in the Union Church down there in Zone 10. And it was a big deal that they let us bring a drum set in. So
that's great.
Anyways, yeah, they were always telling me I played too loud, but whatever.
Okay, so the next question that we have what were some of like your future plans and what happened to them? Did you accomplish them? Did they change?
Yeah, I wanted to be a drummer, and I wanted to be I wanted to do video and hosting video shows and DJ. Those were the 2 things I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which am I doing that? Maybe as a podcast count as that? We didn't have podcasts back then. Nobody knew what a podcast was in '96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure
So
different.
I guess I kind of do that now.
That's good.
So maybe I have achieved my dreams. I can die a happy man. So.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and read what your future plans are here on the yearbook. It says, be a DJ/VJ, start a Christian TV radio station, get a pilot's license, ham radio license, become a professional drummer/sound engineer and tour with a band, and play on the U.S. Olympic volleyball team.
Wow.
Wow, I didn't
Quite
know
a bit of goals you got there.
Yeah, I actually became a professional drummer for a while.
Oh, wow.
So that was cool.
Wow.
Never did the volleyball thing after high school. I never really played it again. So.
Do you wish that you would have stayed on that path, or is it something that you're fine with letting go of?
No, I'm good with it. I'm good. So I actually got into the music scene and I went up to Nashville for, kind of checking it out. And I realized really quickly I did not want that life. The thing I didn't want the most was, we'd play these shows and the shows would end super late at night. And, every night we'd end up at Denny's because that was the only thing left open.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we joke that nobody goes to Denny's. You just end up there. It's the only place left open. So I got sick of doing that. And I was like, I don't like doing that. And then I started playing local gigs a lot. And I didn't really like that either. And I just realized, I think I was a worship leader for a while. I enjoyed that.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know. Yeah. I did a lot of music stuff, but it wasn't what I thought it would be my life back then, which I think most of the stuff in high school you think is going to be your life, but stuff changes and it's actually for the better. I really enjoy what I'm doing now, whatever that is. So,
well, that's great. So,
yeah, definitely. And our last question for you is, regarding the yearbook info is, what was your favorite Bible verse? Do you remember, and has it changed?
Probably Micah 6:8. Was it Micah 6:8? He has shown you, O man, what is good and what does the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly before your God.
No, actually, it was John 16:33.
In this world you have tribulation, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Was there a specific reason that you liked that, or was it just like the first thing that came to mind?
I'm sure it was really meaningful to me at the time. I mean, it's still meaningful.
Yeah.
So Micah 6:8 is your favorite Bible verse now?
No, my favorite Bible verse now is the book of Ecclesiastes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the whole book.
The whole book. Wow. Okay. Well, so today we are specifically on the topic of giving and alumni. So that's kind of what we want to base this interview off of. And so obviously you gave us some background about CAG in Guatemala, and you shared how you were impacted and how it set you up for who you are today. Do you think that you could expand more on how it helped you for your career? Did you find that it prepared you in any way?
The best thing. Okay, so you ready? This is gonna be brutally honest. I was not that great at academics. So, in fact, I was constantly getting in trouble for not doing very well in academics. And I remember the guidance counselor at the time, she was really pushing me for where I was going to go to college. And I didn't really want to go to college. And I didn't know if so she was pushing for this college. And I was like, I don't know if I want that. And I know it's a very important thing for a guidance counselor to have on everybody's thing where they're going to go to college. I think they probably even put that in the yearbook. They were pushing me for where I was going to go to college. Ironically, I just threw out the name of a college, and that's actually where I graduated with my undergrad from later. But I was not super into academics, but I'll tell you what I got the most out of CAG with was, first of all, the Bible instruction. That has stuck with me. That is incomparable. There is nothing. I go back so many times, the verses I memorized. At the time I was there, the senior year, we had to, basically by the time the year was over, we had memorized pretty much the whole book of Philippians.
Wow.
And I go back to that over and over again. Verse will pop into my head. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. The peace of God which transcends all understanding, guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. That stuff comes back to me over and over. So I really believe the Bible instruction we got. We used Kay Arthur's classes back then. Kay Arthur's precepts classes, and that. But then the second thing was Spanish. I had a teacher, an incredible dude named Mr. Marroquin, and he was, oh my gosh, I love that guy. He was awesome. So those were probably the two things. I wish I could say I became a math genius, but I didn't. I got into college and had to take remedial math because I just never got math.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something that CAG is very good on up to this day. You know, the biblical instruction, and I mean we memorize verses since elementary, right? And it's something that I think definitely those of us that have had the privilege to study here will carry on in life. You know, as you have. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so continuing with the topic of CAG and your experience, would you say there's like a particular person or maybe experience some time that impacted you like really and has helped you in life?
Some person from CAG, you're saying?
Yes.
Person or
Or
experience.
like teacher
Yeah,
or somebody.
there was a window of about 3 years where there was a couple there named David and Karen Nicholson, and they led our discipleship groups. David, to this day, is still a dear friend and mentor of mine. David and Karen, actually, we just went on a cruise with them last year. So we have been friends for 30 plus years.
Wow.
My other best friend in the world, besides my wife, Wes Peterson, he and I graduated together. We've been friends for 30 years. I've got a lot of other people I keep in touch with. My friend Brendan Traxler graduated, also friends for 30 years. In terms of people that kind of made the most spiritual impact, it would probably be David and Karen. One of the teachers we also had was a guy named Jeff Bozel. He was the PE, and actually I think he taught me algebra, but he not even he could help me with algebra. So, but I remember him most for the kind of the spiritual and stuff. And we sang in, he was our choir director. And so those two were just incredible. And of course, Mr. Marroquin. So,
Yeah. And would you say that since you've moved to the States and you've experienced life in school in Guatemala, how do you think that the States and like their education system is especially lacking and including a lot of biblical perspectives, and also just including like people who are there and available for you and willing to get close to you personally?
yeah, I mean, every school is different. We're sending my daughter to a private school for that exact reason. I want her to have the biblical instruction. You can't send your kids to a public school and expect them to get biblical instruction.
Yeah.
Public schools are there for, well, I think they're there for indoctrination nowadays, but that's a whole other subject. But, when I came back, here's what's interesting. When I came back to the US, I didn't go to college for 3 years. I worked. And then I finally decided I wanted to go to college. And everybody's like, college is so hard. It's going to be so hard. I got into college and it was so stinking easy. I'll never forget the first test I took. There were like 400 people in my class, and it was a political science class. I took it, and the first test, the teacher calls me out of a group of 400. And she's like, "Who is Joël Malm?" And I'm like, "Oh, great. Did I like just bomb on the test or what happened?" And she had me I don't know why she did this to me. She had me raise my hand and stand up in front of 400 people. And she goes, "He got 103 on the test. All of the rest of you failed it. What's the deal?" And I was like, college is so flippin' easy.
Wow.
Because
That's incredible.
compared to the academic rigor at CAG, at least the school I went to, it was a state university. Generally a good school, but I think the academic standards, I mean, at the time I went, I'm guessing it's still the same at CAG, were definitely higher than what you would get at most schools in the US. And I actually found, now again, I didn't study medicine or engineering, but I actually found my education really prepared me for college.
Yeah.
And then for life, which is even more important because school ain't real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and actually, both of my older brothers also graduated from here, and they went to college in the States, and they've told me many times that CAG definitely prepared them for college life, and that they even helped some of their friends to like help them like how to do a research paper and essays and stuff, because the CAG prepared them well on those things.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And there's things about, obviously you're talking more about CAG. Is there anything about Guatemala, like the things that you've seen outside of maybe at church or the communities that you were with? Have they provided you with experiences that really affected you deeply?
Oh yeah. I mean, Guatemala, like it's like my favorite place in the whole world. I think I like it better than where I live now. But yeah, I mean, the experience of, I mean, we could go into Guatemala and the culture and the people there. It's a unique, I've traveled now in 80 something countries, and you just don't meet people that are as welcoming as the Guatemalan people. And I'm talking all of them, like from up in the mountains with the Ixil people that we would work with, the indigenous people, to the people in the city. And I was just there a few weeks ago, and I was just reminded, as soon as you land at the airport, you're like, gosh, this is a different kind of people here, and I love it. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, definitely one of the things I've always noticed about like the culture is obviously like on the topic of giving, they're very like community and like home based. Like we have done work out in like the middle of nowhere, and they always give us something no matter what we do. Like if we've fix the roof or help them with something simple, they're like, oh, we'll cook lunch for you, we'll make you food, we'll give you this. And it's so incredible to see the community here, and I'm sure that it's much different in the U.S. And so, more to bounce back to CAG. So, CAG is going to celebrate 50 years in 2024. What would you like to tell like alumni, missionaries, families, and like Guatemalan families that have been part of this community?
Yeah. So here's the weird thing. I had an outstanding experience at CAG, but I know a lot of people that when I talk to them about CAG, they don't have a good memory of that. Now, when we dig under it, a lot of it is there was stuff going on at home life. And I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of times people who are in ministry, which it seems like most of the people at CAG, when I went there, their parents were in some sort of ministry, either Guatemalans in ministry or they were from another country in ministry. It's really easy to get your family and ministry life out of balance. And when I talk to those people about their experience, really the issue wasn't so much CAG as just the whole everything. Their dad wasn't around because he was always doing stuff for Jesus or whatever. And that's super easy to get out of balance. And I think, you can blame the school, and yeah, there was some dumb stuff at the time. I remember I got in trouble for wearing a White Sox baseball hat. We had a guy who was formerly the principal of a really thug school in Dallas. And nice guy, but he came down, and when I had the White Sox baseball hat, he said, that's gang affiliated. And he literally would not let me wear a White Sox baseball hat. And I'm like, do you really think I'm gang affiliated? My dad's a missionary. But that's just people. So I think there's dumb stuff like that. I had a friend, he had long hair and they made him cut it for graduation. Whatever, stuff like that. You can get irritated about that. But I think overall, CAG, the environment was just outstanding. I mean, the people that volunteer to serve at CAG, I'm guessing it's still the same way. Most of those people have to raise their own support to come and teach. That right there sets the people that's a different kind of person that's willing to do that, make that sacrifice to come and teach. And, as kids, we don't appreciate it. As teenagers, we don't appreciate it. We're all kind of self-centered. Some of us are still that way. But you don't realize the sacrifice they're making. But I look back now and I go, man, it was so amazing. And I know a lot of my friends that as we talk it through, they realize, okay, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was CAG. I had other issues going on, but CAG was an easy thing to peg it on. Yeah. But really, overall, I mean, it was an outstanding experience. And that's from somebody who was in the principal's office regularly. I was in there at least once a week.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Well, that's great. One of the things that you touched on that I wanted to ask you about personally was balance. And so I'm sure that you're a very busy person, with interviews, and you're an author. And you're traveling. What does balance look like to you in your life?
Balance looks like prioritizing what's most important right now. So I compare it to when you're on a hike and if I go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I'm not going to take the same gear as if I'm hiking in the jungles of Guatemala. If I'm up in Petén and I have a parka, I'm going to die. You don't wear a parka to hike in Petén, and you don't wear shorts and sandals to hike up in, Mount Kilimanjaro. So, but what happens a lot of times is we just throw everything in our bag and you just keep everything in there. And in every season of life, we've got to figure out what's the most important priority right now. And you take some stuff out and you put some new stuff in. And in every season you evaluate. And I think that's how you find balance. It's just like carrying a backpack. You can't carry everything with you. It'll just kill you. You just don't have the energy and strength to do it. So it's evaluating constantly. And, when I tell people, if the burden of life is starting to get a little heavy, there's a good chance you're carrying something you weren't supposed to carry, because Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So you have to stop, kind of look through the bag and go, oh, this is a good thing, but I don't need it right now. Or this isn't the best thing right now. And that's where the mistake I think a lot of people make is they just think they can do it all. And maybe they're trying to save the world, but Jesus already saved the world. So you don't really need to. You just need to obey what he asks of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And now that you've been telling us a little bit about what you do, would you mind expanding a little bit on that? What your work is and how you do summit leaders and everything that you do?
Yeah. Well, so I've learned in entrepreneurship, you don't typically just do one thing. You've got to keep a bunch of plates spinning. So I've got multiple things. I write books, I speak, I lead the outdoor adventures. The outdoor adventures now at this point are probably about 10 to 20% of what I do. I do leadership coaching. So I'll have leaders that come to me that have a transition ahead, and I help them kind of walk through that. I also have a retreat center we started. We started it as a business here in Texas, and we've got 4 cottages that we rent out to people, and we give time away to pastors and missionaries if they're coming. And then the rest of the time we rent them out as Airbnb stuff. Do that, speak. What else do I got going? Got a podcast with my dad. I do I write for YouVersion, the Bible app. I write devotionals for them. So if you just plug my name in YouVersion, you'll see a bunch of devotionals I've written. I'm working on a documentary right now and a new podcast concept. And I got 2 or 3, at any given point, I've got 2 or 3 books that are kind of in the process of being written. All those things kind of make it work. I think if you get into kind of being a creative or entrepreneur, there's multiple things you kind of keep going, and it's never one defined thing that keeps you afloat.
Yes. And I know you through my dad, who again hiked Machu Picchu with you. And I wanted to know, how did, involving hiking and outdoor adventures into like biblical perspective, how did that come about in your ministry?
Yeah, well, so I started hiking big mountains in college. And one day while I was stuck in a blizzard on a mountain, I felt like I just kind of had this vision to start leading people on outdoor adventures. I was going to go to law school, but a bunch of people had told me, you will hate going into law. You're just too active for that. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I graduated college, invited some people to go with me, and I took 12 people, and we backpacked our way, flew down through Central America, worked our way back to the U.S. And the more I did that, the more I realized this is a great opportunity to kind of help people get a perspective and vision for their life.
Yeah.
You step away. The formula we kind of came up with is something my friend Mark, he developed. He says change of pace plus change of place equals a change of perspective. And most of the time, we don't need to change a whole lot of stuff in our life. You just need to kind of get a better perspective on what's already there, and you just engage in what's already there, because God's already given you everything you need for a life of godliness. You've got it, right? If you have accepted Christ, He's inside of you, and He's giving you what you need for this moment. So we just get in line with what He wants to do, and that's how it started. I did outdoor adventure, and I just saw, honestly, I don't like traipsing around in the woods just for the sake of traipsing around in the woods. I like having a set goal, and I like seeing what happens in people's lives when we go towards a set goal, climbing, hiking 4 days to Machu Picchu, hiking 7 days to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, rafting through the Grand Canyon, whatever it may be. I like what happens through the outdoors. The outdoors is a tool. I love being outdoors, but if it's between a Hampton Inn and a tent, I'll take the Hampton Inn.
So how would you say all of this has helped you to give back and also inspire others to give back to people around them, or just to give in general?
So here's my take on this. And at first you go, what? But I'm more and more convinced that we give the best to others when we are walking in the fullness of all God made us to be. I think it was Irenaeus said, the glory of God is a man or woman fully alive. You are a unique reflection of something that He is. And He's so big, there can be 10 billion reflections of Him, and we still not see the fullness of who He is. But I believe in each one of us, He's placed a unique picture of who He is, part of your personality. And the goal is to walk in the fullness of all that is. Obviously, we bring sin and our failures to the picture, but the goal is the sanctification process is to become all He says you could be. And the more you walk in that, I believe you bring a message to the world of a specific thing God is. So like I narrow my message down. Everything I do comes down to wisdom and perspective. The outdoor adventures, the podcasts, everything is that. So I think for example, for you guys, people ask, what certifications do I need to get this or that job? I'm like, forget the certifications. Figure out where you come alive. What's the thing you do that just makes you go, oh, I could do this all day, every day, and then go do that and figure out. And I've found over and over again, the money follows the passion, and it may not follow immediately, but eventually, And you may have to keep some plates spinning in the meantime, go take a side job while you're working on your art or whatever. But if you'll pursue that, I really believe God blesses that. And that's how you end up blessing others. It's the only way you can, I think.
Yeah. And how are some ways that others can give to your ministry and maybe even Guatemala in general?
Well, I mean, obviously everybody's like, well, what do you need? Everybody needs money, right? So
Exactly.
there's money. I think about CAG. I think about how many people over the years have literally gone and raised support to provide for their family so they could go and teach at CAG,
Yes.
which I think is even more powerful, even giving of your life, essentially. Yes, you have to raise the money to do it, but it's giving of your life. And ultimately, I believe there's a tremendous, Psalm 103, bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all of his benefits. There are benefits to serving the Lord. If anybody tells you otherwise, yes, there's challenges, but there's also great benefits to serving him. So I think, again, it goes back to figure out what you have to give and see where you can give that. And if there's something specifically tugging on your heart, if after watching this podcast, you're thinking, man, I did have some great experiences at CAG, think back to that. And you may not be able to take your family down there right now and teach. Maybe what you need to do is give. And one of the best ways you can, where our treasure is, there our heart will go. So if you give towards projects like this, CAG, thinking about, you're going to find your heart is really invested in that. And sometimes that's all you can give. All you can do right now is give finances. And if that's what you can give right now and you feel called to do that, there's a verse of 2 Corinthians 9:7-8. Apostle Paul, he says, each one of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. And what I think he's saying there is we're called as Christians to be open-handed. We have to at any given point be willing to let God take or let him give, right? We keep our hands open and we're called to always be generous. But what we have to do is we have to do it in such a way where we're not giving reluctantly or under compulsion. So you check your heart and you say, I'm called to give. What can I give right now without feeling like I'm being pressured or reluctantly? And it's the same thing. If you see a homeless person on the street, we're called to give. And you say, man, I don't know if I can bring myself right now to give them money, but I'm going to give them something, right? I'm going to give them, you got a snack in the car or something like that. I think we're always called to give. I use this in a marriage context where your spouse left dishes in the sink and you go, not again, there's dishes in the sink. Well, I'm called to give to the person I'm married to. So you know what can I do with a good attitude right now? And if that's 2 dishes and then walk away and then clean yourself up and go eat something and come back and do a few more, we're always called to give, but you want to make sure that you're doing it with a pure heart. And sometimes the best way you can do that is start a little bit. And then the verse goes on to say, and God is able to make grace abound in you in such a way that you're going to even want to give more as you give a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, going a bit into the conclusion of our episode, what would you say in this increasingly, self focused culture, that teens are growing up in? How would you say that teens and other young people can really stop focusing on themselves or on ourselves and really give to others, give to our peers, or give to our parents, people that have impacted us, that have spent have invested in our lives? How can we give back to them?
Again, I go back to the figure out what you're created to do and figure out how you can use that for God's glory. Because and here's the thing, it may be in the weirdest way. There's so many different gifts that we bring to the table and God puts in us and things that you're excited about. And if he gave it to you, he wants you to use it in some way for his glory. So again, it's a weird thing because it sounds like I'm saying be self-involved, find out more about who you are. But really the best thing you can give the world is to figure out who God made you to be so that you can give it away. The challenge is when you figure out who God made you to be so you can use it for your own glory. And there's a subtle difference there. It's, clearly both of you are good communicators, right? Good communicators could use that for their own purposes to get what they want, manipulate, or you can say, we're going to use this to communicate clearly what God's truth is and use podcasting and interviewing, whatever it is. And it's a subtle difference. And a lot of people get hung up on like, well, I'm not going to find out more about who I am because that's self-centered. It's not self-centered if it's focused on figuring out who God made you to be so you can offer the best to the world.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Joël Malm. And we have one last question for you. And that is, how can CAG and our community be praying for you?
How can you be praying for me? Well, and what I'm doing, my goal is to really help. I want to get the word out to live with wisdom and perspective. So I'm praying right now for God to open doors for me, unique doors. I would really love doors actually in Latin America. I would love to use the Spanish speaking part of me to do more stuff in Latin America.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, it's just, you can push. Here's what I've found in life. I can push on doors, but doors I push on, I usually have to keep pushing on to keep them open. Whereas if God opens the door and I get to walk through it, he's the one that holds the door open. And I want to go through doors that he opens. So pray that for open doors, I think would be the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
be praying for you. So
Yes,
Thanks.
we'll definitely be doing that. And actually,
I got a question for y'all
yeah.
though.
yes.
Where is this studio in terms of the room? What room are you in?
We are we're in the administration building. We're on the second level, and we're in like a closet right in front of the, what's it called? Like the little cubicles. Do you know what, does this room have a name?
Yeah.
for
Okay.
us? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know where you are.
It's just like a
Cool.
closet. Yeah, basically.
Okay. I was curious where y'all were doing that class.
Yeah,
Doing the
this used to
classroom.
be a
That's
storage
cool.
room, but it got cleaned up for us.
Yay.
Hey,
Yeah.
way better use. Yeah, it's way better use of the room.
Definitely.
Yeah. So now our last point is actually every week we have a Bible verse, which this week is Acts 20:35. In the New Life version, it says, "In every way, I showed you that by working hard like this, we can help those who are weak. We must remember what the Lord Jesus said. We are more happy when we give than when we receive."
Yes.
What are your thoughts, Olivia, on that?
And I
verse?
definitely, that really ties into like our subject of giving, as Mr. Malm was talking about, that we need to be willing to give, and that the Lord has called us to give, even if it's, in a very small area of our life. If we can only, like he said, give a snack to a homeless person, even if we can't offer money, it's important to give in all aspects to our life to anyone who we see that is struggling or an opportunity that we can give. So yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that, Mr. Malm?
Hey, you can't top the scripture. It says it all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Amen to that.
It does.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Malm, for being here with us. And that'll be the wrap of our episode. So come visit us
Wait,
next week.
Just one last thing. What is the other language that you speak? So you speak English, Spanish?
French.
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 Okay.
Wait,
Could you say a sentence verse in Spanish and a sentence verse in French?
Can I what?
Could you say a sentence for us in Spanish and another sentence for us in French? Just for fun.
Just an easy one.
Anything.
Hola, mi nombre es Joël. Yeah. Bonjour, je m'appelle Joël. My name's same thing. My name's Joël. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Everyone's very
Grandi au
impressed over here.
Guatemala, mais maintenant j'habite aux États-Unis. Grew up in Guatemala,
Wow.
but I live in the U.S. now. Yeah.
Very impressive. So thank you so much. So everyone, please come check out our episode for next week. It will be episode 6. We have episodes every week. And thank you for joining us on episode 5 of the Cougars Cast.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.